Hello and welcome back to the Middling Along podcast. I'm your host, Emma Thomas, and I'm really happy to welcome to the podcast today Anna Kilpatrick. And we discussed off air how I should introduce her. She's a woman of many talents, doing different things. One of the things that she said she's been calling herself is an outfluencer, and we'll find out a bit more about why that might be as we go through the interview. Many of you might know her from Instagram as Not Needing New, where she talks a lot about sustainability and living well with less and on a smaller budget. So we'll unpack a lot of that as we get going. But Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Emma. It's lovely to chat to you. If you can hear a kind of weird crackling noise going on, it is my small dog sitting, biting a hard thing next to me. So apologies in advance.
Wait, I mean, he's a very integral and important part of your Instagram following as well, I think, because everyone's been watching the latest drama of when will Beamer get well.
Dog being really unwell. Yeah, that was really an eye-opener. I learned that kind of half the people that follow me actually only there for dog content.
Dog chat.
Yeah, happy to provide that for them. Anyway, that's not my main focus.
No. But I mentioned the Not Needing New, which is the name of your Instagram account, which has now almost 50,000 followers.
Yeah.
What made you start down that road of, sort of talking very openly about the fact that you were not buying new things, that you were sort of working within this very restrictive, restraining budget?
I think, a couple of things. As we've talked about before, I'm from a really huge family. So I've got 14 brothers and sisters. So I feel like I've grown up without much of a deep sense of privacy. And that sounds as though I'm kind of moaning about that. I'm not at all. In fact, it was and it still is an amazing thing in life to have all these people to share your experiences with, these people who have had the same experiences as you. It's amazing. And I love my big family. But hand in hand with that comes a lack of privacy. And I'm used to sharing. I'm used to having lots of support around me in those siblings.
I'm very envious because I only have one sibling and she's in Australia. So I feel like an only child a lot of the time. So yeah, I see all of those lovely gatherings.
Yeah.
And
you live quite close to a lot of my family. So
maybe they could adopt me.
Yeah, we can
be an extra. One more won't make any difference.
No one will notice, Emma. I'll just sneak you in. Just so here she is. Yeah, so there's that. And I think when I started to live life on a much smaller budget and manage financially by myself with the kids, I was doing a lot of charity shopping and finding bits and pieces. And people would often say to me, what a lovely outfit, or what a lovely dress, or that's an amazing buggy even, or, things like this. And I would say, oh, I got it at the tip, or I found it at the Red Cross shop. And somebody said to me at some point, you should put all these things on Instagram. And I genuinely didn't even know what Instagram was. I put Instagram on my phone in about 2013. And it was quite new then. It looked really different. And I just thought it was a photo editing app. I didn't even know it was social media. How weird is that? But then in 2019, I had worked out, it's 6 years of it on my phone, I had worked out what it was. And then I did start this platform of Not Needing New. It was tiny. Obviously, they're all tiny at the beginning. At the beginning, you've only got one follower, haven't you, or none? And I just thought that it was a nice thing to share. It basically started just with clothing, really, just to share outfits from charity shops, to show that you don't need to have money to dress quite well if you can do some good searching around in charity shops.
And I think that resonates in two complementary ways. There's people who are doing it from a sustainability point of view, because there is so much clothing out there. We really don't need to keep spewing more and more of the fast fashion out into the world, but also from the sort of the finance angle. And I've started shopping preloved charity stuff a lot more. But I think it's there is still some kind of stigma attached to it. I think there isn't. So it's people like you are doing an amazing job in kind of just pushing all of that away.
I hope so, and I think that my thinking about it over the last few years, I've kind of worked out in my mind what I think possibly has happened with particularly my generation of men and women who are, so I'm 50, and I would say for people in their late 40s and 50s, the younger generation are much better at accepting charity shop clothing. I really feel like my kids and their mates and my nieces and nephews, for them it just doesn't matter. It's
Mm.
absolutely fine. It's a standard normal thing to do, and that's great that the message has come to young people in such a strong way. But I think that there's still some sense of hangover with my generation because we were the kids who grew up in the 80s, and that was
Mm.
such a time of consuming. It was such a time of obvious showing your wealth and what you had. And if I traced that back in my mind, I kind of came to the conclusion that my parents, so our parents, were the wartime babies. And they grew up with people who'd gone through having to live with much less and make do and mend and rationing, and people wanted to move away from that as much as possible and reject it. It was difficult, it was traumatic. Hundreds, people died, people didn't come back, people
Mm.
had to take up these jobs, and it was a time of trauma, obviously wartime trauma, even at home, even back here at home. If you weren't deployed overseas in action, it must have been a terrifying time. And I think that financially, the impact of consequences on normal families and rationing, as we've talked about, and having a lot less, people wanted to accelerate away from that, and they did. And we went through a time,
Gone too far the other way.
yeah, and the pendulum that swings is just swinging back again. But I think it's a
Mm.
bit harder. I feel like it's a good thing to show women, particularly of my age group, for whom it was a bit embarrassing at school to have
Mm.
secondhand stuff. You were teased and you were bullied, and people didn't want to be on the receiving end of that stigma. So I think I feel like it's a bit of a responsibility to dismantle it now and to say to people, it's all right. You're not lesser for buying your coat from a charity shop. It doesn't mean that you're a gross person. There's nothing dirty or bad about wearing somebody else's clothes. And I bring up the point to people that if you stayed at the Savoy Hotel and you slept in that bed, those sheets were not brand new for you that night. They've been laundered. Someone else has slept on those.
Yeah, we don't think about that. The towels and the sheets and
Yeah, the
the
towels and the sheets, even in the most expensive, luxurious hotels in the world, have been used by somebody else. And so if you buy a jumper in the charity shop, it's the same as sleeping on the sheets at the Savoy. So that's what I say.
It is a great comparison. Speaking of comparison, you wrote and spoke the other day about the sort of comparisonitis, and I think that's that kind of hand in hand with that sort of the shame or the stigma of secondhand being second best. Kind
Yeah.
of also, you were talking about the sort of the comparing. We are. I think we're just hardwired to do that as humans anyway, so it's hard not to.
It is really hard not to. Yeah, it is really hard not to. And I feel that a lot of the time I tick along really happily, and I live in a really small flat now. I did have a 4-bedroom house with this beautiful cascading woodland garden, and I had a dining room that was separate to the kitchen, that was separate to the lounge, and there was a spare bedroom even. And now I'm in a 2-bedroom flat on the 3rd floor, no balcony, no garden. My children have got tiny bedrooms. One of them's got a pocket sliding door to have created a bedroom. I don't
Snap.
even, yeah. I don't have a bedroom. I sleep basically in what is a little bit of space off the landing above the hot water cylinder. And I've been there for 6 years. We've been in this flat for 6 years. And mostly, I think it's absolutely fine. It meets our needs, and I'm okay. And occasionally, I will go somewhere to a friend's house, and I will feel a real stab of, oh my goodness, I'm a failure. I haven't managed to have these things that other people I started off on a level playing field with,
Mm.
these things that other people have managed. How have I failed? What, and I feel like a bad mother. I feel that I haven't given my children enough, that they've been able to do, I don't know, flute lessons, or go to this club or this activity, or have learnt to ski, or any of those things.
Yeah.
We just have never been able to manage it. And so, yeah, the comparison is an unwanted visitor that sits on your shoulder and kind of whispers to you that you have failed. But of course, you haven't. You've got to acknowledge that feeling. You've got to see it for what it is and just say, oh, there you are again, comparison. You're trying to freak me out. Okay. I've seen that you're
You can
there.
leave now.
Yeah, you can go now. And I think that one of the gifts that comes with getting older, and thank goodness there are gifts, because there are certainly a few punishments, as my hips are telling me. One of the gifts, I think, is perspective. And actually, I've been trying to tell myself, and this I think is really true. If you were drowning, if you were at sea and you were shipwrecked and you were drowning, and a lifeboat came and picked you up and picked the other people up as well and placed you all on board, and you were safe, you'd been rescued, you wouldn't be looking across to the other people on the other side of the boat and thinking, they're in a better spot than me, they're sitting along the nice edge. You wouldn't be thinking that. You're all the same, you're all saved, you've all
Mm.
been rescued. And I think that I need to think about my life like that. I've got a house, I'm safe. Thank goodness, by some crazy twist of fate, I was given a life that gave me this position in this country with all this privilege around me. I might have a smaller flat than my friend in her big house, but we're both on the raft. We're both safe. And in this world currently, with what is going on,
Yeah.
that is, you just have to get perspective and not try and see yourself as having bad luck. My
You're
goodness.
in the
I
1% of the
Yeah,
most
I have
privileged.
the most amazing luck, and there is total parity with any of my friends who have huge houses. They're lucky, and I am also lucky. And I think that's really important that we keep that in mind.
Mm. When your sort of personal family situation meant that you had to move out of the family home, was there a kind of period of grief and grieving for that before life that you had to go through?
I don't know. I think that what happened was just so traumatic, and so I think what happened was so traumatic, and things move so quickly, and when you are in the middle of an absolute shitstorm in life, you don't think, there's
Mm.
no time to reflect. You just keep on going, you keep on surviving, don't you? Although
Mm.
that sounds a bit strong
But
now.
you're getting through life one day at a time. You're not.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just really briefly fill people in who, obviously people don't know what happened. But in 2012, my husband, I'd been with for a really, we'd been together since we were at uni, since we were basically kids. And he was a PE teacher and was 38, and he had a massive stroke and in our home, and collapsed on the bathroom floor one morning. And the kids were 4 and 7, and he lost about a sixth of his brain completely. Basically, a blood clot from a knee injury had travelled slowly over quite a long time, and then one morning just made its
Mm.
way through and lodged itself there. And he was in intensive care for a really long time, and he had it's 11 years on now. We're not together anymore. There's It's really hard to explain. And I carry a lot of guilt about it as
Mm.
well, because I feel that I was judged really harshly for for allowing our marriage to end. But we have just we already were finding things a bit difficult, and it's really, really hard to try and fix things with someone who's had a brain injury. And that's what a stroke is. It's an acquired brain injury. It's the same as if he'd come off a motorbike and had a head injury. He's amazing. He is an amazing guy. He's got a new partner. He's got 2 new kids. My children adore their half kids. Things have settled now, but it was
Mm.
horrible. It was
It's like someone's lobbed a hand grenade into your life and just all of the
yeah,
bits go.
yeah, it really was. It really was. There's a lot of grief. I feel that there's. It's funny because when somebody that you are around, somebody that you love, and I do love him. I love him like I love my siblings. Like I grew up with this guy.
Mm.
He's a really good guy. And when somebody has had something like that happen to them, a brain injury, they're still here and they've survived, and it's amazing. They're progressing. They're surviving. They're resilient and to be applauded. But what people don't talk about is the other people around them are left with a kind of grief for the person before,
Yeah, because
because
they're
you
not the
change.
same person.
Yeah, you do change. And it might be that you change in many really good ways, but there's a definite change. And that person before who woke up and walked into that bathroom is not the same person now. And it's weird. It's like you can't grieve for someone who's still here.
Mhm.
So it's a strange thing. Anyway, as a consequence of that, he obviously couldn't work as a PE teacher anymore. We lost our house. It was just down to me to cope financially in the southeast of England with 2 kids as a teacher.
It's
Honestly, it's so
brutal.
hard. It's crazy. It's so hard. So I actually feel like now, 11 years on, being in this little flat and having a mortgage that I have managed to afford by myself, and with those children financially, that I've done it by myself, I feel I shouldn't be embarrassed about my little flat. I should be proud of it
Not at
because
all. It's
because
heroic.
yeah, because it is bloody difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's, yeah, 11 years of getting from presumably one situation where you think, how am I going to make it to the end of this month? Or, like,
Yeah,
kind of an unexpected bill turns up, or, but
exactly.
like you
And
say,
was there was one section in the middle, I think maybe 2014 or 13, the school that I worked at this boarding school, and the head threw me a bit of a lifeline and said, "Why don't you become a house mistress? We need a house mistress for one of the senior school girls' boarding houses." So I did that, and we moved in. The kids and I, we moved house, I think 6 times in 6 years at the beginning. That was absolutely crazy. And I still feel really bad because occasionally I'll find a box like in the back of the garage here at the flats that says Isaac on it, and I'll open it up and there'll be a load of little toys that I just completely missed in his life. They got packed away when he was 7,
oh,
and they never came back out because life was just so difficult. And I feel like, oh, poor thing, all these little treasures he had that just got taken away and moved, because we moved and moved and moved and moved, and it was so unsettling for them. But I can't remember where I was going with this. Oh yeah, no, the school offered me this chance to be the house mistress, and it was absolutely nuts, Emma. I don't know why anyone thought I could do this. I don't know why I thought I could do it, but I then
having
became
2 young kids of your own
yeah.
already who need that you are solo parenting.
So I was solo parenting my children, who were 4. Yeah, it was so early on. They were sort of 4 and 7 still, turning 5 and 8. I was in a boarding house. I had 63 teenage girls to look after. Some of them were day, some of them were flexi and they'd stay during the week. Some of them would be there like full-time boarding. And I had to meet all of their needs, all of their parental wishes.
I
And
could not. I'm barely struggling to cope with one teenager. I think 63 sounds like.
And then my kids didn't have places at that school because they were too expensive for me to afford to put them even in staff places. So my kids were at the primary school. I had to get up in the morning, get my kids up, register 63 kids, make sure that they were all right and going off to the right places, drive my kids to primary school in the local village, come back, teach, go and get my kids again, come back, sort the kids out for sports sessions, for making sure they were doing their prep and all this kind of stuff. Got to bed about 11 o'clock at night, and I used to just get in my bed by myself in the house mistress house, and I got a 3-bedroom house along with the job, and my council tax paid, and all my bills paid, and pretty much could feed my kids in the refectory of the school, in the school canteen. But I used to go to bed at 11 o'clock at night, set the alarm so that no intruders broke into the teenagers' buildings, and used to just cry and thought, how can I do this? I had to have meetings with parents about their teenagers, and let's face it, they were fairly privileged teenagers at this school,
Mm,
this expensive school, and I had to be the first line of contact for between the parents and anything else that was happening. I remember being in one meeting and seeing my child's little hand come through the door to ask me about something, and I had to push them out, push their hand back and close the door, because the paying kids obviously come first. My job was the house mistress, not being the parent to my kids. Anyway, it didn't last that long. I gave it up. I gave up the house. I gave up that kind of financial security, because actually the only two kids in the world who really needed me weren't getting me. And
mm,
so that's when I really let go of thinking that having a bigger house or having a trampoline or having any of these things were important things, because all my children needed was for me to be able to open that door and make them my primary concern, and not somebody else's child who was, just under my care at school. I couldn't do it. Now I look
yeah.
back and I think, my God, how did I even do that?
But it's
Amazing.
just it's the same thing, isn't it? Is you're just putting one foot in front of the other and getting through this day to get to the next
Yeah,
day, and yeah.
exactly. And kind of in the middle of it, people say to you, you have these voices of people around you who have been through difficult times, and they say to you, this too shall pass, and they say, don't worry, things will get better. And you think at the time, how can they? They're not, this is, it's dreadful, it's awful, and I don't know how, da, 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 and it feels really panicky. But actually they were right, those wise counsels. This too
Well, now
shall
you're that person for
come.
lots of other people, aren't
Yeah,
you? Who are, because the cost of living crisis and various other things kind of going on in the world.
yeah.
There are a lot of people being put into that kind of situation now that you have managed, and yeah, I think it's comforting to sort of see somebody who's thrived and survived through that. It's not to
Well,
say that it's easy, but
yeah, no, I think that's the whole point, Emma. That's like the whole point that I want to make in my Instagram account, in the Not Needing New account, is that actually through just the hand of fate, I ended up losing a lot, and having to cope with on much smaller income in much less space. And I would say, actually, now that I've done it for 11 years, I can really say I don't think my life was better before having a big wood burning stove and this massive house. And I wasn't happier. And I really think that I talk about a lot about the joy of enough. And actually, when you find what is enough in life, that is the absolute sweet spot. That is perfection. When you just work out what's just enough. You don't need to keep shopping. You don't need to bring all this stuff into your life that you have to curate and look after. And it's too much. I think it's exhausting for everybody. When you
it's
find
a machine though, isn't it? Trying to get us to buy more stuff constantly and actually
that,
resisting all of that pressure of kind of just capitalism and social media and telling us that we
yeah,
need this thing or that thing, and then we're going to be happier or thinner or
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And sometimes the occasional little treat thing is really lovely, and I can buy into it. Like I'm a sucker for a good bar of soap. Like there, um, there are some things that I do still get pleasure out of buying. I'm not saying that I'm a hermit in a cave living on seagull eggs. I do still like live in the normal world and go shopping, and I still like having a look at the oldie middle aisle, things like that. But
I'm so envious that you've got Aldi makeup where you are. We don't get any.
yeah,
Oh,
well,
it's
occasionally I have to say it's very hit and miss, but yeah, we do occasionally get it. But yes, there is definitely, for me, I found that kind of working out what is enough has been a really, really good way to feel happy.
do you ever get sort of slightly trolled on social media, like, "Oh, you can't possibly be that happy. You must be miserable about something."
No, do you know what? I found the whole sort of secondhand community on Instagram is so supportive and so delightful. People talk
Mm,
about social media being toxic, and I think yes, it really can be for sure. But I think that the kind of the little pool that I am in, and the mostly women. I think it's not. I think I have like 96% women make up the demographic of my following, and they're mostly a similar age to me. What a beautiful bunch of people! I honestly have daily people sharing things with me, people affirming joys in their lives. I find it a really supportive and beautiful space, actually, a kind of third space in my life. I really love it. I get a massive amount from it. And I think people's kindness, people's capacity for kindness
mm.
is far, far outweighs their capacity for cruelty. And it just makes me think that humans are lovely and wonderful. The places where I have taken a bit of a bashing, or if I've ever spoken to journalists who've been nice in themselves, but they've done, like, occasionally I've done a couple of pieces like in magazines about living with less. And when a journalist writes a piece and it goes online and it opens to comments, my goodness,
Mm.
that is brutal. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Don't read the comments.
don't ever read the comments. And I actually had a really nice journalist talking to me recently who wanted to pitch a piece, and I pulled out. I said to him, "I'm really sorry. I don't think you should spend any more of your time on this because I just don't want to do it. It feels."
Mm.
You know that you open yourself up to people. I did a piece once and it was in a Mirror online or something, and I didn't get paid for but I thought it would help my not needing new account. And the only reason I need that to grow is not because I'm totally narcissistic, it's because I've got a literary agent now who found me through Instagram, who's at Curtis Brown, and I've got this book proposal in for this book that's called The Joy of Enough, all about living with less. And the difficult thing about publishing at the moment is that you have to prove that you've got a platform. They don't really
Mm.
want to publishing houses don't want to take a punt on you unless you've got a solid platform. And I'm afraid 46,000 people is just not enough. You've got to have 460,000 people
It'll
that
take
kind
you
of
a bit longer. We'll get
yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly. Another 20 years. So
Oh.
the growth thing is kind of good for the possibility of that happening perhaps one day. But the comments on this piece in the Mirror were so awful. It was really brutal. It was like, she's a tramp. Who the hell does she think she is? She looks like a jippo. Like, I'm sorry,
Wow.
what a horrendous word to be using anyway.
Mm.
It's just so yeah, that social media is toxic in that way. But I guess you've got to try and think to yourself, would I go and ask uh, John, who's commenting on the Mirror piece, would I care about his opinion? Would I go to him for advice? No. So I don't have to take his feedback. Don't even have to look at his comments,
I
actually.
do wonder what is going on in these people's lives, though, that they have so much vitriol that just needs to come out via the keyboard. I mean,
No, you just feel a bit of, yeah. In fact, if you can turn it to pity, it's probably the best thing to do with that feeling.
mm. But
Yeah.
Instagram's also led to a really interesting kind of recent development, which is you've been finding some of your brilliant charity finds and selling them in conjunction with
Yeah, Valerie.
jams and preloved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was really nice because what happened there was I left teaching after 23 years. At the end of 2019, I left teaching. I finally decided that it just became so stressful. I think that the job that I was doing really wasn't the same job that I trained for back in 92 to 96 when I trained, when I
I
went to uni
couldn't do
and
it.
did. Yeah, it was so difficult. You became, I think teaching now is so holistic. You have to be responsible for every aspect of that child's life, and you are held to task for that. And it's too much. And these kids are walking around with their phones, which means they're interconnected constantly, even when they're on the bus, when they're going home. Bullying and
Mm.
difficult scenarios with the teenagers, that there's no escape for the kids, and it does have repercussions for the leaders at school, and school have to pick up all this stuff and deal with it, and people are then writing about them on parent forums, and it's so hard to get it right as a teacher. You are just sort of I feel like you're under attack from every dimension, the greatest of which is the constant bringing in of new initiatives, so that you lose your break time, your lunch time, like every moment of the day. You've got to have an intervention group to bring up the boys in year 8 who are, just, oh my God, it's just exhausting. Anyway, so I gave up at the end of 2019, and I went to work for my really good friend in the village that I live in. Her husband's got this completely amazing, quirky life whereby he's a vintage car restorer, but also he had this idea to sell men's lingerie. So he's designed it himself, and he creates, he has it handmade in Leeds, in this amazing little sewing initiative. And so I came on board to help him launch that and to market it, and it's quite the job, let me tell you, editing pictures of men's bottoms.
It's an interesting niche.
It's a career swerve from marking English pieces, but it's been fun. And so I've been working for him, but he recently, it's been hard for him holding these two small businesses together. Has been really, really difficult over lockdowns and what's happened, and Brexit has have a massive impact as well on on the car world and the underwear world, things getting goods imported in and out, and it's been so hard. So I ended up losing 50% of my job, which means that I am down to a secure £15,000 a year to live off for me and my teenagers and my dog, which, if you live in the southeast of England, you will know is pretty blooming difficult. So I kind of panicked, and then I thought, what am I going to do? Shall I do some cleaning? What other job could I do? And I thought, I've got this kind of healthy bunch of people who follow me. I hate saying that, who follow me like I'm the Pied Piper.
I need a better word.
Yeah.
My community, a community.
Who I'm in a community with, I would say. Yeah. So in this community, and I thought, I love going to charity shops and finding things. I love that, but I've got enough myself. I don't need any more. So perhaps I could go and find beautiful stuff and flip it and resell.
And you do find the best stuff. I don't know how you do it. I'm rubbish. I mean, I'm wearing, no one can see, but I am wearing one of my charity shop jumpers.
It looks lovely. It looks like a Sarah Nordic.
It is. It's
really
nice. An
nice.
H&M one, but
it's really nice. So I thought I could do this, and I said on my Instagram stories, because I do share, I overshare probably, but I just talk openly on Instagram. And I said, look, I've lost half my job. I might do some reselling. Yeah, I'm going to think about that. And I got contacted by a local reseller who lives about 20-minute drive from me, who I had met at a market. I bought a couple of things from her, actually, and I had shared her website with
I've bought some lovely stuff from her as well. It's brilliant. It's Damson Preloved. If you're anyone listening, check it out.
She's fabulous. And she contacted me. And I think, she was really brave to do that. She contacted me and she was like, right, if you're going to be doing this and I'm doing this and we live in the really same area, let's have a talk about how we could help each other instead of being rivals. So we met and had a little smoothie, and we decided that what we could do is, she already had a website. She already had built that herself, and she'd got this fabulous website. She's got all the mechanics of how to sell online sorted. She's got the card payment things sorted. She's got, the time, and she understands the whole postage system. She's got it sussed. And I didn't have any of that structure in place, but what I had was quite a big community of people. So she was like, right, you bring me your community of people and I'll give you the structure, and we can go together and we could see if we could work together. So we have done, and I've got a little section on her website, and then we work together and we do these lives together, and it's so nice. She says she feels like she's got a colleague after years of working completely solo, and
somebody can be very lonely. I know.
Very lonely, and I feel like I've got a mentor as well. And she never ever wanted to do lives on Instagram because she's quite shy. She's much happier running a stall in real life and talking to people face to face. And I don't mind doing lives at all. I'm actually happier telling the entire world like what I've had for breakfast than I am going to a party and talking to 6 people. I find that harder. And so we really complement each other, and it's been fantastic. Yeah, we're not millionaires. It just makes a few quid, but it's really nice. I really enjoy it, and hopefully it'll grow. Who knows?
Fantastic. Well, that seems like a good place to end. How can people find you online if they're not already following you?
Well, actually, there's 2 places. So I have actually got my own website now, which I bought myself with my birthday money. So I have got a website that's called notneedingnew.com. That's it. No full stops in it, just straight through, notneedingnew.com. And from there, there's a link to my Insta, which is not.needing.new. So either Instagram or my website, and also the collection that's on Dams and Preloved. I'm there as well.
Fabulous. Well, Anna, thank you. It was lovely getting to chat to you at long last. I've
And
been following
you.
you for a
And
while.
next time I come to Oxford, I'm going to give you a shout, and we'll do an Iffley Lock walk. We can go for a walk together.
Sounds lovely. I don't have a dog that I can bring, but
You share mine.
maybe I can steal. The neighbour's got a new puppy. Maybe he'll lend me out.
Yeah, my dog will savage it, so let's just take mine.
Thank
Thanks ever
you.
so much for letting me be part of your podcast.
It's a joy. Joy of enough.
Yeah, enough already.
You've been listening to the Middling Along podcast. Do remember to subscribe to be notified when our next episode is live. And why not visit the blog at www.middlingalong.com to sign up to my newsletter as well. I do hope you enjoyed listening today. If you did, I'd be really grateful if you would consider leaving a short review, as that helps people find the podcast and helps get it noticed. Hope you can join us next time. Goodbye for now.